This is True Colors of Cybersecurity. Powered by CISOSHARE in Southern California to be enjoyed globally, we discuss the unspoken truth in the cybersecurity industry. Check out our other episodes at CISOSHARE.com/cyber-security-podcast.
Welcome to another episode of True Colors of Cybersecurity. If this is your first time, welcome. I'm your host, Celine, and I'm here today with our president and CEO, Mike Gentile. And today's topic is third-party and vendor risk management. This is a vital aspect of many security programs. Surveys have shown that a large number of breaches can actually be attributed to unaddressed vulnerabilities in third parties, downstream vendors, and suppliers. So today, we're going over what a third-party vendor risk management program is, what your team needs to keep in mind to build and implement an effective program, and a few lessons and observations we've seen in different organizations. We kicked off today's episode with a discussion of the basics. What is third-party risk or vendor risk management? Essentially, it's a program that businesses have in place whenever they work with third parties or vendors that provide services or otherwise have access to information in their business. A third-party vendor risk management program helps organizations assess the risk and impact that these external organizations can have on their environment.
Moving forward. So really the process of performing that measurement is really the third-party risk management system. It commonly integrates into and is one of the work streams that can be found in an overall risk management program. We define a work stream as really any area within the organization that you need to measure risk. There can be enterprise risk management work stream. There can be business unit risk assessment work stream, project-based assessment work stream. Third party is one of those work streams commonly, and it's really one of the more important these days because it depends on the statistics you look at, but up to like 40% of breaches are associated with problems associated with a third party that kind of leads to that breach event. I think the common organization may have 100, may have 1,000. We've seen a ton, organizations that have a ton of them. And I think most important, many organizations don't do this well. And I think it's really because of a lot of things. One is I think that a lot of people are throwing the wrong approach to solve the problem. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions associated with how people are doing it. And again, that's why I'm back here because I think something needs to change in the domain.
Although there's a lot of emphasis on building an effective third-party vendor risk management program, we find there are a lot of misconceptions organizations have around these processes, which leads to a few common mistakes. The biggest mistake organizations often make is choosing a tool and thinking of that as their entire process.
This is associated with really the human condition that as humans, we bond around tools. We also like to associate something, we like to associate things to something tangible. And so a lot of times people will go out and, buy Archer, and that is their third-party risk management solution. Mm-hmm. Back in the old days in my last company, we would have people that come to us and they would want to buy just the solution, the tool, because their conception is that the tool is the process. And we got to a point where we literally stopped. We wouldn't sell it to people if they wouldn't let us do the process design or make sure that they were having the process design done properly. It's because really you're going to fail in almost any condition with any solution in that way.
Another misconception around tools is the idea that any third-party risk management tool will do. But as you hunt for solutions and hopefully design your processes, you'll often find that there are different tools that are meant for different aspects of your program.
Basically, you have different types of assessment processes, and you want to throw the right type of tool for risk assessment at that process. So a lot of times people will get a very heavy tool, a big freighter aircraft carrier, and they try to put it down a little tributary in a river. They're trying to just perform very quick assessments on an environment, and they'll try to throw a very heavy tool at it. Vice versa, maybe they're a big time defense contractor or something, and they have a very rigid process and a very rigid risk management program, and then they try to use a lightweight tool in order to do it.
Something else that we've found that organizations tend to forget about when they're spinning up a process or searching for a technology is the human element. There are people that have to use these tools and execute these processes after all. Mike also mentioned the problem of the inputs that certain technologies use. A solution with inaccurate inputs will lead to inaccurate ratings and impact on an organization's ability to make informed decisions.
Many tools out there try to actually relate directly to some type of risk methodology. Mm-hmm. And in order for any risk methodology to work, you need to have effective inputs into that risk methodology. The reason that life insurance works well is because we can have pretty good data on when people die and different conditions that associate that death. Mm-hmm. We don't have that in security risk management. Our inputs are not there. There's a lot of people that are going to tell you can get quantitative with risk assessment and risk management and all those things. Great. And there's some great people doing some great work out there on getting that. But I still argue the ability to get inputs that are effective in order to manage the solution of the tool. So just keep in mind the decision criteria that you use on a tool is something that is going to integrate into that tool, and it's going to impact whether it's successful or not. And a lot of times the decision methodology is associated with some type of risk framework.
Beyond mistakes that organizations make with tools, there are also misconceptions about the process within the organization itself. Third-party vendor risk management doesn't live only with security. There are a lot of business units that need to be involved in the process.
People think that the security team owns this process. And very rarely does a third-party assessment process just live within security. It also lives within procurement. It lives within legal, probably lives in with whoever the business owner is that's going to be bringing in this solution or element to the supply chain. And so really, when you look at process design, the way that we often communicate it is that the security team should own the overall development and documentation of the entire process across all the different areas of the business. However, that doesn't mean that you're going to go into procurement and tell them what to do on their piece, right? It's just management of the process, but then having different owners across the business. So that's another thing that causes these things to go really sideways.
As an organization measures their third parties, as when they measure any other aspect of their business, they have to select meaningful criteria. It's important to find the details and look at the accuracy of any risk reports that come to organizational decision makers.
Generally, the criteria that's used is your inventory. How many vendors do you have? And it really stops there. They don't really look at things such as how is the process designed, how efficient is the process, which steps are automated, how it's documented, how people are integrated into it, the skill set of the people that are performing on the process. When we measure third-party assessments, and really part of our progress-based ideology is that we look at those things, because really you can't understand third-party risk management until you do that. Also, people spend a lot of time looking at, what are the overall risks of the third parties. And I'm not saying that's not important. I'm just saying look at some of the other things to understand how accurate that report that's spit out actually is, and making sure that you're measuring how effectively third-party risk management operates as a system.
Sometimes organizations get caught up in finding solutions or implementing processes that give incredibly accurate information on the risks of each third party. While this might be helpful for some, it isn't necessary. The preoccupation with accuracy can instead become a distraction in the pursuit of effective risk management processes.
The most important key to success is not the accuracy of the risk of the third party, of how risky they are.
Right.
A lot of times people will spend on that. And the big thing, whether you're using quantitative analysis to measure risk or qualitative analysis or some of the other magic 8-ball solutions that are out there, is the more time you spend and the more quantitative you get, the more accurate you're going to get. However, the more time it takes in order to implement it. And you might be able to get 9/10 of the way to the finish line by just looking across all of your third parties and maybe using a more systemic and organized way to measure than to go and fight for accuracy. So don't fight for accuracy. And unless you're selling a tool that focuses primarily on accuracy, I think that you can get a good amount of the way otherwise.
Another huge misconception Mike identified is that security teams forget about the needs of the business.
Even with risky third parties, the business, so your organization, wants people to pass. They want to use that product. They want to use that service. They don't want to get called in to have to do more analysis on that third party. Mm-hmm. And I think in security, a lot of times we get hung up on the fact that, this is risky. I need to, basically not, not give up because these guys are there. And I'm not saying to give up, but I'm just saying understand that at the end of the day, most organizations, unless they're nonprofits or government entities, they're focused on business transactions, and many of these third parties integrate into that. And if you don't at least appreciate that, which often I've seen many security person get just smoked by not looking at it from that, you're going to probably not have a successful program. Because I can tell you, I have always made a decision in a lot, and I've told many people this. I've been pushed up against from an integrity point of view, how I communicate situations and what I've seen in my travels in business, and I've never compromised my integrity. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that the majority of people on the business side, they just want to get that vendor through, and they're going to get it through, or that third party, and so you just need to be cognizant of that. And maybe it's a wacky thing to say, but I think you can, it can really help you out.
With all of this in mind, we found that there are often two routes that organizations can take to building and implementing their third-party vendor risk management program: faking it and true implementation.
The biggest misconception is that really you have two options for rolling out a third-party or vendor risk management program. Mm-hmm. I call it fakey to pass or true implementation. Basically, it's like looking at a person and determining how sick they are. That's what all of the dynamic third-party assessment scoring mechanisms do. Mm-hmm. I don't think getting a health premium paid would work if the doctor just looked at you from the outside and basically determined how sick you are. Some other fakey to pass stuff, just saying that you're doing your banding and just looking at the top 20, your top 20 vendors and not looking at those other 25,000 mm-hmm. that you literally are never going to get to. Fakey to pass is just having a tool. And when the auditor comes, showing them a snapshot of the tool, happens all day long and twice on Sunday. It's cool. You're fakey to pass.
True implementation, on the other hand, is about looking at the system you have in place to try and reduce the risk of a breach from your third parties, analyzing and properly staffing your processes, and getting real insight on what your vendors, third parties, and suppliers are doing.
The other side of it is true implementation. True implementation is really looking at a system to try and reduce that 40% breach risk, perform true analysis, make sure it's adequately staffed, good process design, a lot of the things that can give you real insight on what, those thousands of vendors or third parties or suppliers or whatever are actually doing and implementing a system there. Mm-hmm. That's also a hard road to take. But I think, maybe there's some other names out there, but I think really determining fakey to pass is that the scientific one? I've just invented it. So I'm not that smart of a guy, but I think that, at least determining what you want to do is going to help you in guiding and making sure you're articulating the right requirements.
Once an organization has decided which route they want to take in the implementation of their vendor risk management program, we've identified a few steps to executing it: design, document, optimize, and automate.
We really break it down into kind of four buckets, design, 4 steps at a high level: design, document, optimize, then automate. Design mm-hmm. is really looking at your requirements, looking at what you have in place, measuring current state. understanding, aligning that to, are you fakey to pass or true implementation? What are you really trying to do, grabbing those requirements so that you can, first understand what those requirements are. And then on top of that, do a current state analysis and measure then how you are against that. And then once you have that in place, actually designing what it should look like what is the healthy system for you. And you want to look at all the characteristics that would lean and to a healthy third-party risk management system. And those are things like, process efficiencies. Can you handle the velocity of the process? How many do you need to perform? How you're resourcing, all of those types of things in order to make sure it's successful. Next is document. And again, document's another thing. If you're fakey to pass, document my third-party risk management program, template. There's probably 1,000 of them out there. Put it in a binder, make sure the date is current, and you're going to be good. Or go ahead and really truly articulate and document based on your design so that document itself can serve as an active tool for not just your security organization, but also all of the people that are going to participate on executing in all the organizations of the business so that you can get efficiency. Next is then optimizing. So you're always going to have areas where you can optimize this workflow. And that's whether you're optimizing in a fakey to pass or you're optimizing in true implementation. Either one, you can always look for better ways, to do it, either saving costs or saving efficiency so that you can actually get more done. And then finally, and it's very related to optimize, is automate. So once you understand the process, then you can automate specific process steps. And there are many technologies, and including, the rating companies that are out there that are going to help to automate even a cursory banding or give you some information. And it is great. It's not that I'm not saying it's right in the right conditions, but look at how you automate process steps in order to get speed. And there are also some great solutions if you're looking at it from just a third-party risk management perspective, that can add a lot of efficiency associated with automation. It is a workflow that is easier to automate than some of the others.
And that was our discussion on third-party vendor risk management. We hope today's episode gave you a little more insight on what makes for effective third-party risk management processes. With a staggering number of third parties, vendors, and suppliers that some organizations need to assess, we know that this is an area of security that's in high demand. This is why our cybersecurity training program focuses on giving individuals with the right aptitudes an opportunity to work in the industry, specifically in areas like policy analysis and third-party risk management. Our goal is to close the skills gap in Orange County while simultaneously addressing the cybersecurity resource shortage. As always, if you have any questions about today's episode or anything else CISOSHARE is doing, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram @CISOSHARE. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.